St Moritz in Switzerland, in the Oberengadin, high in the Swiss Alps. We are at the birthplace of ice sliding. The road from St Moritz to Celerina has had sliding on it for over a century, and this is the birthplace as well as Skeleton. The Cresta run behind the Dracula Club there is where the sport started, and where in 1928 and 1948 the Olympic Games were held. But this modern track now alongside it, the bobsleigh track, has become the centre for the skeleton world. I'm Martin Haven, alongside me, former medalist here, Ben Sanford. Ben, what is it about this track that makes it so hard?
It's a difficult track because it's so unique, and the ice is natural. Like, they build this track every year, it's built new every year, and so it's a little bit different every year. And the weather conditions, like we've seen this week in St Moritz, it started off really warm. We had to cancel one day of training, and then it was cold for a couple of days, and then again today it's a little bit warm. So that makes getting your setup on the sled a little bit difficult for the athletes. It's a long track as well, and you have to be so relaxed and so calm on the sled. And there's a lot of time between the corners, there's a lot of time to adjust and get ready, but you really want to just do your steering on the corners and then just let the sled flow and relax on the straights. Just let the sled flow as much as possible. And there's some really tricky parts on this track this year. Coming into Horseshoe here, the exit of Horseshoe is tricky. A lot of people are going to be hitting out of Horseshoe. Getting the combination after Horseshoe, which is Telephone and Shamrock, into Wall, that's also a difficult part of the track this year. And one of the features of this track is that instead of the corners being numbered 1 to 17, every corner has a name, and that name is associated with a piece of sliding history as well. And so it makes the track special, and athletes love coming here. And this is the fastest part of the track. You're sliding into Martineau, you come out of leap, and you are just going. And when you get it right, it just feels incredible. And there's this beautiful sound on the sled, and there is really nothing like sliding out of leap and having a good line.
Track records established every year because the track as a handmade item is essentially fractionally different. And like in Whistler, Mimi Raneva from Canada is the start and finish record holder. Now, she lost her start record in Whistler. Will it stand up today? Chances are, yes, it might. Tina Hermann of Germany is our World Cup points leader from teammate Jacqueline Lurling. And Jane Channel of Canada, what a season she's been having. Hasn't won a race yet, but lies third in points. First 3 races of the season, we had 3 first-time winners, but now we have had 3 different winners in the season, and with 4 victories, it is Tina Hermann who has comfortably taken the lead of the standings. There is our reigning European champion, I beg your pardon, our outgoing European champion. She won it in 2014. 2015, Lizzie Yarnold was the European champion. And as well as World Cup, it is European Championship week this week here in St Moritz. Marina Gilardoni of Switzerland will be the first off, ahead of the returning Latvian Lelda Pregelena, who's had a slew of medals in the last few weeks when she hasn't been doing World Cup racing. And we have a field of 21 athletes that'll be cut to 20 for the second heat. And we welcome back to the World Cup for the first time this season, Maria Montejano from Barcelona. Martin Haven, Ben Sanford, at IBSF Announcers is our Twitter handle. If you want to send us in questions, you can feel free to do so. And let's get the action underway with 28-year-old former double junior world champion bobsled brakewoman Marina Gilardoni. And Marina won the title in 2008-2010, converted after 2010 to skeleton, and is now really at the peak of her speed, where she is just days away, perhaps, from a win.
Yeah, Marina having a good season. First time on the podium, sliding well in North America before Christmas, and coming here to St Moritz, her home track. Yeah. Looking nice and comfortable on the sled at the top of the track. It's so important in the long straights there to be relaxed, to really sink into the sled.
We talked in the men's competition about the Swiss not really having a home track advantage. The nuances of the track are different every year, and they don't get a lot of time on the ice at all before the World Cup arrives in January, February.
Yeah, they don't. Normally the track opens here in late December. They sometimes get a week here at the end of December, and the national championships are often then. This year, though, or this season, the national championships are at the end of the season, so none of the Swiss sliders have really spent a lot of time here. I think Marina might be here for the first time this week, so there's really no home advantage for the Swiss team.
Sun's coming out, you can see it through the trees over the track. It's natural track, no refrigeration, depends on the refrigeration of the winter weather here. It's been very mild. 127.3, 79.1 miles an hour down at the bottom. 112.16. Well, where is that going to fall in the pantheon of times? Fastest run this season has been a 1:10.57 from Mimi Raneva. I need to meet Mimi. She's appeared in commentary for the last couple of weeks. She's just a week ahead of us all the time. Well, what about Horseshoe? Is this a high enough line?
Yeah, Horseshoe's really tricky this year, and you're going to see athletes today with different lines and doing different stairs to get out. You see Marina here taking a reasonably middle height line, using her foot at the top of the pressure to steer the sled out and get that angle before she gets into telephone.
Well, next up, Lelda Pregelena. Since she didn't go to North America, she's been racing Intercontinental Cup. She's had 4 silver medals in a row, and then she went to the Junior Worlds in Winterberg and came away as the Junior World Champion for 2016. So this 22-year-old from Latvia kind of hit a bit of a flat patch last season in her career trajectory, but she now seems to be really kicking on.
Yeah, having a really good season. She slid really well at the Junior World Championships to take the gold medal on a German home track. She beat the Germans. And looking good this week in St Moritz.
Well, there's all sorts of talk about what next year's calendar might entail, and the big carrot dangling for Lelda and for the Ducours brothers, as well as all their bobsledders, is perhaps a World Cup return to Sigulda. What do you think about Skeleton going back to that track?
I think that would be fantastic. I think the Ducours brothers have done an amazing job over the years of, bringing Skeleton to Latvia, and there's a demand in Latvia to have a race there. And I think the last race we had there was in maybe 2005, 6. So a long time ago, and it'd be great if we could go back there.
400ths of a second off the lead. Lelda could take it 500ths back. That's a really nice run. 127.4 speed down at the bottom from her. And she looks so quiet, so still on the sled. Now, Marina's got a bobsled, great woman's build. She's, quite strong, quite big. Lelda is really a bit of a flyweight. Is that counting against her here at St Moritz, of all places?
The weight issue in Skeleton is an interesting thing to talk about, because it depends who you talk to. We've had athletes in the past that have been really small and done really well, and we've had larger athletes that have done well. So it's something that you just need to make work for yourself, no matter what size you are.
This is such a personal sport, isn't it? It's just you and your tea tray. Anne O'Shea of the USA, first ever race win in her career, came in Lake Placid 3 races ago. The season pattern this year has been first time winner, 2 for Tina Hermann, first time winner, 2 for Tina Hermann. We need a first time winner this weekend to keep that pattern going, and then Tina Hermann can win the last 2 maybe. Well, such a different track from Lake Placid. I mean, so much heritage at Lake Placid, like this place, twice an Olympic venue, a little more recently perhaps, but a very different natured track in its entirety.
Yeah, it's almost hard to imagine 2 tracks that are less similar than Lake Placid and here. Here you have a real gliding track, a lot of space between the corners. Lake Placid, everything's coming at you, bam, 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 straight away, and it's like being in a washing machine.
Again, Annie very still on the sled, no skidding and skating. Saw a lot of that from the women in the final training run yesterday. Lots of slithering around, but look at the speed she's motoring now. 96.6, she's gone from 500s back to 1300s up. She's found 2/10 of a second below Horseshoe, and she is stretching away. 128 kilometers an hour. There's a few men would have been pleased with that speed. And that is a really nice run, 1:11.90. And no wonder Coach Tuffy Latour looks happy with that.
Yeah, and he's done really well there. Didn't have the best top of the track, but she let the sled run enough, and she didn't try and overcorrect things, and that's given her the speed through the bottom part, and she's picked up time and speed.
Noelle Piker's pace won here for the USA in the Worlds 2007. Last American woman to win here is forerunning today. You know who that is?
Who?
Katie Eulander.
Yes.
So Katie, after a season away last year, has returned. She won the ICC, the 2nd tier of sliding, and she will be in the World Championship lineup for the USA next week. And for Germany, The 20-year-old from Winterberg, Jacqueline Lurling, will be in their World Cup lineup and their World Championship lineup. And Yoko is having, again, a big season. Youth Olympic gold medalist 4 years ago. The Youth Olympics start next week as well. Really good timing there. And a double junior world champion. She won the last 2 titles before Lelder took it this year.
Yeah, Jacqueline's a great slider. She has really good feeling on the sled. Really good timing. Just looking so comfortable at the moment.
5:63 start, so quarter of a second behind Annie O'Shea in her run. Now, we talked about how this track will allow you to get away with that. And again, she's a big, tall athlete, and you know, she could conceivably have been drafted into the bobsleigh program, so she's got that going for her as well. Does that work here?
Yeah, I always thought it was better to be a little bit heavier and bigger in St Moritz. It's a long track, like you say. The pressures aren't too high in the corners, and so you can, if you have a little bit of extra weight, you can use that to your advantage, and sort of more weight going downhill is generally a good thing.
Well, she has got mass and momentum, and here she comes from 3/10 back at the second split. She's now 100th in the lead, 97.4, a kilometre an hour quicker than Annie O'Shea. She should be shading 1:30, she is. So she's going to take the lead for Germany. Lurling has been close but no cigar all year long. Now, could that put a smile on Jens Muller's face if a first-time winner was also a German?
Yeah.
And, you know, she came very close in Winterberg. She had a great World Championships last year in her home track in Winterberg, but didn't yet, at any stage in her senior career, earn the gold medal that is just dangling in front of her. This might be the place.
Yeah, and if it's not, I'm sure she'll get there eventually. Sliding around horseshoe, taking that low line. See her just pushing into the sled with her knees and her feet on the ice.
I know that our reigning world champion and the last woman to win on this track is watching at home, Lizzie Arnold. I wonder how she's going to fare battling Tina Hermann next season. Can't wait for that when Lizzie comes back to the ice. Meanwhile, Tina Hermann is putting herself head and shoulders above this field in most occasions. 5:52, not a big starter either. She was only 5th here last year, so I wonder what her progress curve is going to be like.
The real feature of Tina's sliding is she sort of twitches her head a lot as she moves down the track. Uses the head to sort of guide the sled and put the sled into the position that she wants it to be in.
Now, is that just the head working in the air, or does that then shift the weight on the shoulders and the hips go with it, or?
Yeah, I would imagine, yeah, the hips and the shoulders go with it a little bit. She uses the head as a guide to move the rest of the body.
Great first corner speed, 47.1 kilometers an hour, 96.9, slower than Lurling.
Yeah, a little bit sideways coming out of Shamrock into Devil's Dyke.
Well, the gap was out to 2/10. It's now less than a tenth of a second. It'll be in single digits here. This is where Lurling really hit the accelerator. 130.3 we're looking for, 129.1. This could be down into hundreds. She was only 200s up. Will she lead? No, 600s behind. So, Jens Muller looking very happy with himself. Lurling leads Hermann by 600s. Third place, Annie O'Shea, 4,400s back. And there's the train that runs from, well, Chur, in fact. You can get a train all the way from Zurich with a couple of changes up here to St Moritz. And a World Heritage site, the railway line, the Rethische. Stunning way to arrive in St Moritz. And here's a good-looking run from Tina Hermann to put herself in medal contention yet again. Just got pushed away a fraction there at the bottom of the track. Another red helmet and a yellow jacket at the top from the coach. This is Sophia Griebel, the third of our Germans, 23 years old. 25 years old, rather.
Sled really came to the right when it came out of the groove there, but she's done well to adjust and have the right position on the sled. And you can relax as she goes from kink 1 into kink 2 and down into wall.
Oh, now you see, this is what we saw quite a lot of yesterday in training. The sledge is starting to track left and right, and the athlete swiveling their hips a little to try and bring it back under control. Unlike luge, you don't have square-edged runners. They are tubes, aren't they? So there's really very little control at all.
Yeah, that is, and that's something that the viewers really need to understand, is that there is not a lot of control in the skeleton sled. And so just to have the balance right on the sled and be able to keep it going in a straight line is a feat in itself. And then what you're seeing here is the best sliders in the world, and able to steer a skeleton sled. And a skeleton sled, when it steers, it's not going to steer immediately unless you jam your foot into the ice and twist it around. But there is normally a delay between when you steer and when the sled actually moves.
3 top 5 results so far this season for Sophia Griebel. At the moment, she is in 6th position behind our junior world champion, Lelda Pregelena. 1:12.24, and that leaves her a little shy of the field. 78 hundredths back. That is not going to put her even remotely close to medal contention. She'll be lucky to be in the top 10, I should think, from that run. Sophia, the most experienced of the trio. But it is Jacqueline Lurling who leads by 600ths from teammate Tina Hermann, with Annie O'Shea, the USA, lying in 3rd. 3rd in the World Cup rankings is Jane Channel from Canada, 27-year-old from North Vancouver, half Japanese, accountant by trade, and having a stunning season. She lies 3rd in points without having won a race, took a silver medal in Park City, a bronze medal in Winterberg, and her season's worst result was the first race in Altenburg, where she was 7th.
Yeah, having a great season this year, Jane. She's such a good athlete at the start, so fast.
You see her heritage on the helmet, the rising sun of Japan, the maple leaf of Canada. The Canadians really rock these helmet designs. You see Elizabeth Varchi with a brand new one coming up later, but yeah.
Trying to keep it off one wall and then trying to keep it off the other wall. Oh no.
That's a real horror from a good start. 5:33, comfortably the fastest we've seen so far, tying with Marina Gilardoni of Switzerland.
Yeah, the next split is going to show her losing a lot of time, I would say.
Well, we were leaving the track in darkness last night, and she was at the weighbridge weighing her sled. She just wanted to double-check the weight of the sled. Sled and athlete have a maximum weight. There's a minimum weight that comes into play as well. Ooh, and again, a little dink into the wall out of horseshoe.
Yeah, and that makes the 2 corners after horseshoe difficult as well. So she's done good to regain the line and get that back, going around Devil's Dyke.
You can hear that lots of little scratty noises now. Is that the helmet chin piece on the ice, or is that toes?
Yeah, right there it's toes.
Yeah. Now again, is that intentional, or is that just that she's got quite a long frame and G-forces are pushing them down onto the ice?
It can be both, but I would say in that particular situation it was intentional, trying to keep her off the right-hand wall as she came out of leap.
Because although it would only be what we would term maybe a little brush with the wall, when you are doing 80 miles an hour, brushes can be quite painful, as well as damaging to your speed.
Yeah, absolutely, and the walls here are rough. They're covered in these icicles, and it's not like hitting a smooth wall of ice. You're hitting something that's been hit before, and there are bumps and icicles, and it hurts.
And you can see, looking at the wall, how rough it is. But again here, she gets into this little meandering, skidding thing. See the marks her toes leave on the ice as well, as you just try to drag it straight. Elizabeth Varchi of Canada. The maple leaf viewed through broken ice on the top of the helmet, little band-aid on the back as well. She missed the La Plana race, and as a result the European Championship counter in Eagles last year because of a little bit of a dizzy spell. She seems to be healthy and happy this year.
And her mum Rita has turned up this week to support her in St Moritz and follow her through to the World Championships next week in Eagles.
Took the silver medal here on this racetrack last year. Race was run by Lizzie Yarnell, so she is the highest finishing returning athlete, still in the green and pulling away from the Germans.
Taking the high line there, bit of a tap out of horseshoe.
And that's Costa, she's dropped back behind the leaders. 95.0, they had 96 and 97 kilometers an hour. So this Bromley athlete losing ground heavily now, 3/10 back. You can see her left leg dragging the whole time, trying to control those steers, half a second back.
Yeah, it's hard through those right-hand corners when you start going in late. The next one just gets later, and the one after that even later, and then you eventually hit a wall.
1:12.22, that's 6th fastest. That is ahead of Sophia Griebel and Jane Channel. That is not where she wants to be, and this year doesn't seem to be gelling quite as well as her rookie season last year. I mean, she started with a silver medal in her first ever World Cup race in Lake Placid. She's got to patch something together for the second heat, that's for sure. Height here.
Yeah, nice and high in horseshoe, but just not quite getting the angle out right and hitting that wall before telephone. Making a call on telephone, as they say.
And does that then take the speed out for the rest of the run?
Yeah, it really does. You really want to accelerate out of horseshoe, and if you don't get the clean line out, then you're not accelerating.
Our reigning World Cup champion, Janine Flock from Austria, 26-year-old. Won here last year. Said it was Lizzie Arnold. It was not. It was Janine Flock who won her first World Cup race in St Moritz and over-rotates, almost didn't get on the sled. How she managed not to pop that out of the grooves, I can't imagine.
Yeah, that was a messy load onto the sled, but regaining her composure, and you really have to forget about that, something like that straight away, and just concentrate on what's happening next.
European silver medalist last year, European champion the season before.
And Janine building up for her home World Championships and Eagles in a couple of weeks, and that's got to be the main focus of the season.
Yeah, I was talking to her yesterday. I said, you know, how much media pressure are you doing on TV and radio and all that? I said, yeah, all the time, absolutely flat out now. The media building up to a feeding frenzy for the World Championships. Ooh, big hit out of horseshoe. She's 700s back. What will that take out of the sled? 96.9 is still good speed, Ben. She could be in top half dozen at the bottom, still only 900s back.
This part of the track is crucial now. She has to do this well. Sled's just accelerating downhill here. You hear that noise as you go into Martineau.
900ths of a second back. She is right in contention. She could challenge for the lead. Tings off the wall, 900ths back. She was 900ths back out of horseshoe. She lost not even 100th of a second to Jacqueline Lurling and Tina Hermann for half the track. She has got the speed, if she tidies up horseshoe, to win this.
Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely. Like, there are a couple of mistakes there, horseshoe and the start.
And the start, yeah.
And so if she improves that for the second run, she'll be flying.
Oh.
Yeah, you can see there, just like you said, just over-rotating and that left foot swinging across the sled. Coming out of horseshoe here, just taking a bit of a tap before telephone. Those two mistakes have cost her a bit of time.
Now, speedy starter, race winner, Laura Dees of Great Britain, trying to recapture the form that saw her claim bronze medal on the ice in St Moritz, the, quote, home track for Great Britain last year.
Just manages to avoid that left-hand wall as she comes out of kink one. You can see her right foot is a little bit lower than her left foot there, coming into wall. Just trying to keep it off the right wall.
Two very different athletes, Laura Dees and leader Jacqueline Lurling. Laura starts nearly a quarter second faster, but she's petiter and weighs less, carries less mass on the sled. And the longer the track is, the more that's going to help Lurling claw back that lost time.
Yeah, as long as she's sliding well.
Yes. Well, Laura, what a great run there through horseshoe. Didn't get the hit, a big steer. She's gone from 3,300s to 1,900s, but she still leads.
This is going to be close at the bottom.
95.9 to 97.5 of Lurling, so she's 1.5 kilometers an hour down. She's going to be in the red at the bottom, but by how much? Needs 130, doesn't get it. Third, second, is she in front of Janine Flock? Fourth place by 100th of a second. Top four covered by 2/10. Game on.
And you can see her just crossing the finish line there. She comes out of the last corner, which is a left-hand corner going uphill. And because it's a corner going uphill, you don't really want to do any steering there, because every time you steer, you're slowing yourself down a little bit. So you'll see athletes often sort of hit the wall on the exit of Potago, or, you know, maybe just go into one runner like that. It's not going to really cost you any time because it's right on the finish line.
Jacqueline Lurling, Tina Hermann, Janine Flock, Laura Dees. Perm 3 from those 4, and you have potentially your medalist. Who else is going to challenge? Kim Armand's a Belgian, burst onto the world stage last year at 18 years of age in the World Championships. silver in the Youth Olympics 4 years ago at the tender age of 15.
Yeah, takes a tap there. She comes out of kink one, but does well to control it and keep it off the wall and off the other wall as well, which is difficult to do.
Started her career sliding as a German athlete right up until 2014. She went to school in Bavaria.
Coached by Martin Rettel, former Austrian athlete and Olympic medalist and world champion.
And just takes everything in her stride with such a big smile. You know, she's on this huge upward trajectory the whole time, and just nothing seems to faze her.
Yeah, she's very mature for her age and young slider, but you're having a good season, having some good results, and maybe not the best run here, a couple of mistakes, but she's learning the whole time, and she'll continue to get better and better as the years go on.
We've got another 15-year-old, Great Britain's Ashley Pittaway, heading to the women's skeleton team in the Youth Olympic Games. So these athletes are getting younger and younger. Tina Hermann was the youngest World Cup debutante, but I think that might get shaded by Ashley Pittaway. 1:28.2, not great speed at the bottom, and you could see how much work she was doing, and that all sort of translates. The more the athlete moves, Ben, the slower the sled goes.
Yeah, absolutely. On a track like this, you really want to let the sled run and just glide and really sort of use your finesse to guide the sled down the track. And if the sled's not on the right line, then you have to do more and work harder to get it back on that line.
Well, with the pink camo helmet, Yelena Nikitina, fourth in the Junior Worlds this season, just edged out of the medals. But such an explosive starter. Again, sort of flatlined a bit in the last 12 months or so, her career.
Yeah, incredible at the start. Often beating a few of the men in the start. Really
wow, 5:26. Well, there you go. Often beating quite a few men at the start. She is quite petite. I mean, she's still growing. She's definitely taller than she was last year, but, you know, she's a slight athlete, but she's got such speed at the getaway.
Is she growing, or are you getting shorter?
No, I'm not sure we're getting shorter. We're not getting younger.
We're not getting younger.
Oh, definitely not getting shorter.
Sliding around Sunny. Nice line going into Nash and then Dixon. A little bit late in Dixon. She's going to have to work to get that middle line into horseshoe. Touching out of horseshoe.
4,500s up, 94.7. The Germans were 97.4 there, so she is going to lose lots of time before the finish. Down to 1,900s up from 6,300s.
A lot of steering through, I think that's tree.
And Dr. Sachs, this long stretch, 1:25. That is the slowest speed we've seen. Well, whatever questions Willi Schneider was asking with the setup, the answer to that was niet. Did not go at all well. We saw, who did we see that earlier from? From Elizabeth Varche. Two different tracks. Great up until horseshoe, horrible below. And the same for Yelena Nikitina.
Yep.
It's that Tretyakov thing, isn't it?
Here we see her in horseshoe and just coming out of horseshoe, sliding off the corner, and you can see how rough that wall is on the left-hand side, and she hits into that, and the ice goes flying, and just slowing her down.
Late height. Next up from the USA, Kendall Wessenberg from Modesto, California. And she name checks In-N-Out burgers as her favorite food. Well, who wouldn't?
Using her toe there before kink 1 to get the line, heading downhill into kink 2.
A surprise arrival in the World Cup this year, kind of previously unheralded. She really fared very well in the 2 races they had for the US trials in Lake Placid and then in Park City, earned herself a spot in the World Cup, and she's really held her end up. You know, as a rookie or relative rookie on a lot of these tracks, she's had a good, strong rookie season. She's just outside the top 10 in points. Best race for her, 5th place on home ice at Park City.
Yeah, and that's a great result in your first season to be in the top 6. looking good here in St Moritz. Bit of a tap there, sending her late into Devil's Dyke. Devil's Dyke has been a difficult corner this year. It's one of the few two-pressure corners on the track, and you've seen most of the athletes do it pretty well, but you don't get the timing right there this year, it can really mess you up.
Lots to learn on this track, and as we touched on earlier, because of warm weather earlier in the week, 1 day less training instead of half a dozen runs. They had a busy day with 3 runs on Wednesday and 2 yesterday, but 6th position. And again, you know, that underlines that wherever she's come from and whatever experience she's got, she really learns fast. You know, I'm not sure, she can't have raced here more than once in her career. No, she does. Yeah, you're right. Like, she has a good coaching crew around her as well. Zach Lund here is, I think he medaled here in the World Championships a number of years ago, and he's a very good slider, and Taffy Latour's been on the tour for a long time, and they're both good coaches, and it's a good team atmosphere to be part of. Well, next up, 30-year-old Donna Crichton for Great Britain. And Donna looking to try and do what Laura Dees did, which is build on a big start here, and then just relax and let it all flow. And you sense Donna is one really big result away from completely changing her profile in the World Cup. Last year's Intercontinental Cup champion. 5:51, a nice quiet run down the first straight.
Yeah, it feels so good when you can get this top section of the track, when you can just sink into the sled and the sled is going straight. You don't have to worry about the walls.
When do you breathe, by the way?
Hopefully you do breathe as you go down the track, but you notice some athletes will get to the bottom and they'll be completely out of breath. And I don't know, I never had a problem with breathing, but I think some people do.
I mean, the temptation to just hold your breath and be so still must be overwhelming there at the first part of the track. 1200's up at the start, 1100's behind as she gets to Horseshoe. That's opened up to 4/10.
Yeah, but oxygen's a good thing to have.
Yeah.
Especially on a track like St Moritz where it's over a minute long. You're on the sled for a long time.
And especially at this altitude, when you're nearly 2,000 meters up, you notice the lack of oxygen in the air.
You sure do.
And the other thing is it makes you super tense. What's the speed? 127.8. It looks smooth. It looks controlled. Where's the speed going? 7th at the start. She is 13th ahead of only Kim Milmans. Okay, well, she'll make the second heat, but that's not threatening to be in the top half dozen, which is what her start gives her the opportunity to do.
Yeah, Donna won't be happy with that. That'll be frustrating for her.
Medium low line here.
Steering and Horseshoe, that looks, it's difficult to tell.
Little brown patch on the
now.
Little brown patch on the track there you can see below the athletes. Today we had a little bit of a ceremony spreading the ashes of Korean coach Malcolm Lloyd on his, what he referred to as his home track. Next up, Yulia Konakina, 20-year-old Russian. And Yulia, again, a real flyer at the start. But look at that toe chopping thing we saw from the Germans a couple of years ago, and especially from the Russians. Not a little drag, they chop at the ice with the toe.
Yeah, you really want to go around kink 1 and get that line set for the long straight as soon as you exit kink 1. And one of the ways to do that is by tapping a toe or dragging a toe or maybe steering before the first kink. But any way you can do it and then let the sled run.
Well, Janine Flock came to the sport from cheerleading for an Austrian-based European football NFL style team. Yulia Konakina comes to the sport from the bar. Not a lawyer, she's a former ballet dancer. So if she's not got balance, there's no hope for the rest of us.
Yeah, putting together quite a nice run here. She's looking comfortable on the sled. Leap just pushing her a little bit to the right.
126, again, speed very low. And we saw that from Nikitina, 125, 126 for the Russians. They are the slowest two through the speed trap at the fastest part of the track.
And that can be really frustrating when you're an athlete. When you put down a decent run, but you don't have the time and you don't have the speed, that's when you really start to question, you know, am I relaxed enough? Do I have the right equipment for the weather conditions today? You know, what am I missing on the track? You know, where are my stairs wrong? So you're just using her toe a little bit there. and then counter steering with her other toe to make sure that she doesn't hit that left wall coming out of horseshoe.
So there is Julia, 100th behind Kim Malmans. They're 14th and 15th in our field, but the top four covered by 0.2 of a second. It's Jacqueline Lerling from Winterberg in Germany, who's our race leader. Well, we've had Yelena Nikitina, we've had Yulia Kanakina, we've had now the most experienced of our Russian sliders, 27-year-old Maria Orlova from St. Petersburg. And if an athlete blows hot and cold, if you're looking for the classic example, then Maria has had that history where she can produce the most sublime runs, but not always repeat them.
Yeah, you're right. There's a couple of years ago, was it last season, where she often had the best run in the first heat and then just seemed to fade away in the second run.
Couple of times she fell out of top 3 positions, but last year Altenberg strung 2 together, and you sort of thought, okay, that gets the monkey off her back. Now let's see what she can really produce. But again, because the way the Russians have running up to this World Championships, she's only spent half the season on World Cup. 2400s up on Jacqueline Lerling, and again,
sorry, a little bit of a skid there, like her line through Nash and Dixon wasn't great, and just moving on the sled and trying to correct it before she went into horseshoe.
Wow, she's lost 3/10. She's now 1600s back. That's 4/10 in fact, isn't it? I was going to say, is this where she challenges Lerling? Because she's another tall, strong athlete who could easily be a bobsled pusher.
And you see her just doing too much steering on the straights. Like, you really want to do your steering in the corners and then just let the sled flow out on the line that you've got, and then do the next steering in the next corner and just be as relaxed as possible between them.
Less speed even than her teammates. Again, you know, when you look at a racing car and it's going well and the driver's not skidding around and it's slow in a straight line, you look at the tires or the engine. They don't have an engine, so you look at the contact patch. You know, they're not skidding around, so have they got too conservative a bow, too conservative a rock? Is there too much runner on the ice, or is it just too thin a runner for these soft conditions?
Yeah, you might be right, and you see her here just a little bit sideways, not, you know, just struggling to control the sled there in horseshoe. And we really have to ask Willie Schneider, the coach, about what sort of setup the Russian athletes are on today.
And then he'll just smile at us. Joske Lecon for the Netherlands. Netherlands now with a male and a female skeleton slider. Joske here with her mum, almost as ever. Her mum's not been around so much this season, but Joske, after the Europa Cup last week when she was here, she then went back home to the Netherlands for a couple of days to go back to work, so she could come back this week and then go straight through to the World Championship. So holding down a full-time job and sliding, and there's an awful lot of athletes that have to do that there.
Yeah, there's not really any money involved in skeleton. You know, some athletes are lucky enough to have funding from their national federations or their Olympic committees or their governments maybe. But most athletes are going to have to support themselves during the off-season and, you know, train when they can and, you know, save up the money that they earn from working during the off-season and use it, like spend all their money and all their life savings and probably all their family life savings just to do skeleton during the season.
Joske looking to have a really good run going here. Only 12th fastest starter. She was in the lead to horseshoe. Quarter of a second back. This is firmly in top 10 territory. 1:28.5. We'll see a slip maybe from 8th down to 10th place at the line. Let's take a look. Where does she come in? 8th place. She holds on to that. So the speeds aren't excessive here, but that is a really nice run from Joske. She's been struggling just a little to get back on top of her Bromley sled this season. Last year, midway through the year, she converted onto a Bromley and it really sort of transformed her. Now she's starting to find her mojo again.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Fantastic to see her back in the top 10 and doing well. And here in horseshoe, just using her foot to get the line out of the corner that she wants. Takes a bit of a tap there coming out of Shamrock into Devil's Dyke, but maintains her composure and keeps the line in Devil's Dyke.
Whistler, best result of her season, 13th. She's now lying in 8th. Next up, Jacqueline Narracott. Didn't race in Whistler, says she shouldn't have done the second run in Park City. She was starting to feel dizzy, so she's had a couple of weeks away from the ice. What can our Aussie slider do here? 22nd last year, didn't make the cut. 5:53, that's a good start. Let's see. She certainly seemed to be very chipper this week and feeling completely happy within herself.
Yeah, she's definitely not taking the conservative approach today. I spoke to her yesterday and she's gone for a very wide set of runners, and if she can keep it going in the straight line, she's going to have a fast run. And so far, so good. Nice line coming out of Sunny. Gets that crossover into Dixon.
Dash and Dixon, she's looking good. Don't forget, all these sliders, our race leader, Jacqueline Lurling, starts very slow. So if you start quicker than her, you can stay in the green a long while. She gets to Horseshoe, and she then drops 4/10 back. But below Horseshoe is where Lurling sprinkles her magic dust and works whatever weird sorcery it is that she works. Everybody else, though, is starting to struggle now for pace below in the fast corners.
Yeah, Jacqueline just having a few troubles in the middle section of the track, coming out of Horseshoe and then out of Shamrock.
Horseshoe is so critical, isn't it? You know, you can have a shocking run to there, and if you get a golden exit, it just, I mean, the height that you carry down from Horseshoe can really slingshot you faster down the rest of the track.
You can see how low she is here in Horseshoe, and that just keeps her on the corner a really long time. Sort of throws her across onto Telephone.
Well, she didn't have the big hit, but you saw her getting pushed back up. So Jacqueline Narracott 14th, 18th in the field is Maria Oliver. Corinna Meyer, the diminutive Austrian, next up, just 20 years old, bronze in the Junior Worlds last season. This year she went to the Junior Worlds in Winterberg as well. Only 10th place, but Winterberg is a big starters track. Corinna Meyer is not a big starter. 5.70, she's 19th off, that's the 19th start. Well, she's Jacqueline Lurling, our race leader, started in 5.63, so she's 700s behind her. She won't have the momentum.
Looking comfortable on this lead here at the top part of the track. Into Sunny Corner. Sunny Corner is probably the best feeling corner in the world as a skeleton slider. But you want to be getting it right as well. It can be very frustrating when you're getting it wrong.
3,500s back. Again, one of the tinier athletes in the field, so she's not carrying a lot of body mass down the ice. 96.3 though, that's decent speed. Top 10 were in the 96s and into the 97s now. Is she going to bring back this 7/10 of a second deficit? One thing that Eagles, where she grew up, drills into you is absolute desire to have good aerodynamic form. 128.1, great speed from Corinna Meyer. Considering how slow she started, 14th place. Well, the start is going to be a problem for an Eagles because there's 1,700 meters of ice here and there's 700 meters less or so. It's barely a kilometer of ice in Eagles, so she's going to struggle there, but...
Yeah, Eagles is a really short track, and the World Championships are obviously there in a couple of weeks, and it really does start it favours a fast starter. There's so little time or ice in Eagles to pick up time.
19 sliders of our 21 are down. There's the start house and the Dracula Club at the top of the ice. And former Austrian slider Martin Rettel helping out with Katie Tannenbaum from the Virgin Islands, the 30-year-old from St Thomas. And of all the athletes in the skeleton field, she definitely feels the temperature change from home on the beach at Christmas to the winter when she returns.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing feat that Virgin Islands is, I think for the entire time that I've been in the sport, had a skeleton slider.
And Bermuda.
And Bermuda.
Yeah, so I mean, and where you grow up, you know, can have a bearing. For instance, if you grow up near Innsbruck or near Berchtesgaden, you are more likely to be enticed to a track because they're there. But yeah, you get athletes from the weirdest and most wonderful and least likely parts of the world coming to the ice because they see it on TV and fancy a go.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about skeleton is that people that fancy a go can come along, try the sport, get involved, and once you get involved and once you try it one time, it's pretty hard to stop because it does feel pretty good.
It's a massive adrenaline rush. And the other great thing is you can be self-contained. You can pack yourself and your entire team into a small hatchback, as you have done for many, many years, Ben. And, you know, you don't have to worry about 3 other meaty guys and a 2-man sled and a 4-man sled and all the other stuff.
No. And although skeleton is expensive, it's not expensive compared to other winter sports.
127.0 speed down the bottom. That's pretty decent from Katie Tannenbaum, 79 miles an hour. She's in 20th place at the moment. One more sled to come. So it will be a battle between Katie, as she gets the hug from Sarah Lavrencic, and our final slider.
Sliding around the horseshoe here. Key corner on the track and maintaining good position.
See the way there, the hands are tucked under the thighs, holding the handles at the back of the saddle. Our final slider then, making her World Cup debut for the season, Maria Montellano from Barcelona, Spain.
Bit of a slip there at the start.
Started back in 2008. She used to go and pick up friend Anna Mirambel from the airport and eventually got persuaded to leave from the airport with them and come and try this thing.
Yeah, Maria hoping to get a World Cup spot next season. Just a little bit back and forth there in the straight going into wall.
Started ahead of Katie Tannenbaum. It is the battle between the two of them to make the field. One will be in, one will be out, unless they tie, in which case both will go through into our second and deciding heat.
Maria was here last week for the Europa Cup and she's looking a lot better today, looking a lot more relaxed, but that's really high.
Big height, big hit.
Ouch. She had some pretty nasty bruises on her arm coming into this week, so that's definitely not going to help.
She was up to 18th there, ahead of Julia Kanakina and Maria Oliver, and now that big hit in the wall has robbed her of speed. She drops to 21st spot. That was the part-time commentator's curse there. Speed at the bottom, 126.4. Unlikely to be enough. How close will she be at the line? Is it her or is it Katie Tannenbaum? And it is Tannenbaum who goes through, and that error, trying to get a little too much speed on the exit of horseshoe, has cost Maria Montellano a chance to go through into the second heat. She had enough speed at the bottom, but lost too much time there.
Yeah, I think she's found St Moritz quite frustrating in the last couple of weeks, and you can see her steering down here, but it's just not enough, and the sled stays really high. That's very close to the roof, very late in the corner.
And she's now underneath the sled. The camera does not lie.
And this hit is going to hurt a lot.
That's why she's leaning away with her head and her shoulders. So,
shakes it off.
Yeah. She'll get some physio from her travelling partner, Sarah Lavrencic there. The two of them have been hand in glove over the years. But at the other end of the field, a first heat lead for Jacqueline Lerling. Have we been here before? I'm not sure we have. Whatever, she has never led at the end of a second heat in World Cup racing. This might be her chance to stamp her authority on the field here in St Moritz and end up with her first ever World Cup win, and with it the European Championship. But the challenge from behind is real. Tina Hermann just 600s back with 4 race wins under her belt this season. Janine Fock, last year's World Cup champion, in third. Laura Dees, also a race winner, as is Annie O'Shea, packing the top 5. 4400s back, and the gaps further back are equally enticing. Look, Lelda and Lizzie Vache, 100th behind between them, and 200s behind her there, Sophia Griebel. Lots of very tight battles, and unfortunately for Spain's Maria Montellano, she will not make it into the second heat. Well, that comes up shortly here from St Moritz. The women will be back on ice at 3:45. That is 14:45 GMT. Join Ben Sanford and me, Martin Haven, for all the action.